I'll call the meeting to order. And I think we will have a quorum then, once our new member is sworn in. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
In a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? And here comes Glenn. So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right, so that passes. And then, Councilman Mundell, would you mind coming up, please?
I can do that.
Thank you. Hello, Glenn.
I expect it's for my report that you want me up here.
Yes, please.
All right. I'm Brian Mundell. I'm your City Council Liaison. First off, I want to say congratulations to Christina for your appointment to the Planning Commission. You have a very good, excellent, knowledgeable board of people to work with here, and I wish you all the luck. Just a couple things as far as it relates to the Planning Commission. Council is looking into putting together a business advisory council made up of local business owners. That's still very early in the planning stages, but it's something that council's looking into to have a better relationship with business owners and see what they need, what they don't, etc. So, staff and council is starting the process of redesigning the city website. Every so many years with Civic Plus, we have the opportunity to redesign the website, do updates. I know Carrie has a long list of wants and needs that she wants to incorporate into the website. It sounds like some things could be some big changes to it where it may be down the road right now, but we're talking about getting all the records scanned in, all the property records, housing permits, and once that's done, it could be a possibility that a resident could just go to the website and look up their paperwork on the website rather than having them come City Hall and take up staff time.
Would that be open to anybody, or you'd have to have like a password for your particular document, or?
I'm sure it would be open to everybody, but I don't know the
As they're
specifics
public
on
documents?
that. Yeah, I don't know the specifics if you have to register or, but it's very early days on that too, so.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So Booster Day is July 19th. There'll be all sorts of events planned. There's 3 different bands, some different events, car show, vendors, pancake breakfast, food trucks, kids activities, kids inflatables. The parade is back this year, and the fireworks will be at dusk. So hope to see everyone out there and talk to your neighbors, bring them along, just get a good crowd out there and enjoy our city celebration. So that's about all I got. So is there any questions or comments? All right, well, I wish everyone here a safe and happy 4th of July. So
Thank you.
we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to go on to the approval of minutes. Are there any corrections?
I couldn't find any.
I found a few on, so it's our page 2, line 36. It said the commission reviewed the letter of recommendation. I think that should say that commission reviewed the letter of application because there wasn't a letter of recommendation that I know of. And then on line 44, it says she noted that she has a strength in effective communication. I think it just should be effective. That's a little picky thing, but. Mr. Terry, do you have any?
Nope.
I don't have any.
Okay, okay.
Motion to approve the minutes with the amendments of,
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion passes. Okay, and then the next thing is the swearing in of our new Planning Commission commissioner.
Yes, at last night's city council meeting, the city council approved the appointment of Christina Pagnick to the planning commission based on the recommendation made by the planning commission at the May 27th meeting. Ms. Pagnick's term will begin today and end on January 31st of 2028. Ms. Pagnick is present tonight to take her oath of office and to assume her seat on the East Bethel Planning Commission. Please read the oath of office and raise your right hand. All right. I, Christina Pagnick,
I, Christina Pagnack,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the state of Minnesota,
and the state of Minnesota,
and faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the City of East Bethel Planning Commission
and faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the City of East Bethel Planning Commission
in the County of Anoka in the state of Minnesota
and in the County of Anoka in the state of Minnesota
to the best of my ability,
in the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Okay, well, welcome, Christina.
you.
We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Glad you did it.
Thank you.
Okay, two things. Grace, there's, on your microphone, there's, it's really puffy. Do you have a thing? Or?
Yeah, I don't have a, oh, there's one right here.
Maybe just sit back.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I'll sit
I
back
think it'll
a little
pick it
bit.
up. Just don't get too close.
Because you're going to be talking a lot tonight, right? Well, here, you got it. Okay, and then the other thing is, have you posted for another commissioner then yet?
We
Or
have
will you be?
not, but I will check with our staff and see if we will be.
Okay, there were no other applications from before? Is
As
that
far
correct?
as I'm aware, there have not been. That happened before I came in, but I will check with Carrie and our other staff to
Okay.
check on that.
Yeah, if we could get that going as soon as possible. Did you want to say something?
I was just curious what happened with Eldon. We approved.
He was not, yeah, so we recommended his approval, and the city council did not appoint him as a commissioner.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. And I was just gonna encourage you guys that are on the commission to see if you can find somebody who might want to apply to, that you might think that would be good at this. I think it goes a long way, right? To
Yes,
ask
for
somebody.
sure.
So, okay. Okay, let's go on then to the public hearing, which is a request by the applicant Alec Jensen of EB Commercial LLC for variance at Outlot A, Elevage, EB Second Edition. And is there the list of names of people that are gonna speak? Okay, thank you so much. And Grace, are you gonna be doing all the presenting, or is
I will
Karen?
be doing the first two, and Kendra will be doing the barn dominium hearing.
Perfect, thank
All
you.
right. This is a public hearing for a variance for the location of a development monument sign at Outlot A of Elevage EB Second Edition, their subdivision. The applicant for this variance is Alec Jensen of the Elevage Development Group. This is a variance request for the location of a development monument sign within 20 feet of public right-of-way on Outlot A in Elevage EB Second Edition. As seen on the image, the sign will be placed the request is for the sign to be placed east of Sandhill Parkway and north of 189th Lane at the intersection. The property that this sign is proposed to be constructed on is zoned and guided mixed use. The surrounding properties are guided and zoned the same. Highway 65 is to the west, and the Viking Meadows subdivision is to the north. This is not the most accurate aerial imagery, as a substantial amount of development has been done in the area recently. For example, the roads are pretty much all in for Elevage. This property is 5.61 acres, and it is an outlot, which it means that it is part of a subdivision, but it must be platted at a later date in order to be considered buildable. According to section 12-1C of our city code, outlots are unbuildable, and a condition of the approval of this variance is that the city council would authorize the applicant to build this development monument sign on this lot. Outlot A has been identified for commercial development in the future, though staff is unaware of any immediate plans to plat and build on this lot. The request is to allow the placement of this development monument sign within 3 feet from the property line along Sand Hill Parkway Northeast and 4 feet 10 inches from the property line along 189th Lane Northeast. This variance is required as development monument signs must be placed at least 20 feet from the public right-of-way. In this case, the public right-of-way extends up to the property line on this property. This sign location encroaches approximately 17 feet towards Sand Hill Parkway and 15 feet towards 189th Lane from what is required by the code. It is worth noting that this sign location is outside of the 30-foot site triangle that staff uses to assess whether objects near the corner of a road would impede on traffic visibility. Staff has not identified concerns regarding traffic visibility at this intersection with the addition of this sign. There is also a utility easement 10 feet west and 10 feet east of the fire hydrant, pictured in red on the image. The city engineer has stated that the proposed location keeps this sign out of this easement. The fire hydrant is temporary, and removal depends upon when utilities are extended to the north. This easement is not pictured on the site plan, but it is pictured on the final plat for this subdivision. The approximate location of this monument sign was shown in the materials submitted during the platting process, but the approval was not explicitly given in the development agreement, which is why this variance is being sought. Staff has looked at the possibility of reorienting the sign to reduce the encroachment and discussed this with the applicant. There would be a possibility the sign could be oriented towards the corner, but the applicant has stated that reorienting the sign would not allow it to be visible from both north and southbound traffic, as this current orientation would allow it to be. This is a quick look at the design of the sign. It's pretty standard for a development monument sign. Staff has found that the sign meets the standards established in Chapter 54 of the City Code for signs. This is a quick look at the current conditions at the site. On the left, you will see the current proposed location for the sign. The fire hydrant is pictured on there. The bottom image is what a driver may see heading north on Sand Hill Parkway. The property lines are not visible, but can be assumed that the edge of the sidewalk is approximately where that property line would be, and the sign would be about 4 feet behind that. The two images on the right are the alternative locations for the sign that the applicant mentions on page 21 of the packet. The top location would be on the other side of 189th Lane, so just over the street to the south. This location, the applicant states, is not usable due to concerns about the right-of-way and also the proximity to the wetlands. The image on the bottom shows an alternative location of the sign that would place it along Baltimore Street to the north entrance of Elevage. This is pictured on page 25 of the packet. This would allow the sign to be outside of the 20-foot setback, but it would require a retaining wall, according to the applicant. The variance standards for approving a variance are the practical difficulties test, and the burden of proof is on the applicant to show that they have a practical difficulty that can only be remedied by a variance. The three standards that we use to evaluate this are that, first, the request is reasonable, so the applicant is applying to use the property in a way that is sensible but not authorized by the code. The second is that the request is due to unique circumstances on the property that are not caused by the landowner. This is often something like sloping topography or the proximity to a wetland that impedes where the applicant may place how the applicant may use their land. The third is that the variance, if granted, will not have a negative impact on neighborhood character, so that variance will not make the variance is not for a request that will look out of place or out of scale in the area. Findings of fact for each of the three standards have been provided in your packet. The Planning Commission is requested to open the public hearing and may recommend approval of this variance based on the applicant's submission, the contents of the staff report, public testimony, and other evidence. If you find that all three parts of the practical difficulties have been met, Planning Commission may also impose additional conditions to the approval and may modify the draft resolution as you see fit. The other option is to recommend denial of this variance request if, based on the contents of the staff report, the applicant's materials, the public testimony, and other evidence, you deem that this request has not met the practical difficulties tests. I'm happy to answer any questions.
No questions for right now? Okay, well, thank you very much. And I'm going to open the public hearing. There's a public hearing, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So would anyone like to speak to this issue? Okay, please come up and, did you sign this sheet? Okay, great. If you could just say your name and your address, please.
My name is Will O'Keefe, 3020 France Avenue in St. Louis Park. I work for Bader, which is part of the development team on this project. And mostly I'm here to be a resource and answer any questions you all might have. This is a challenging site. We've been working on, as Grace alluded to, a number of scenarios for how we might put a sign in a place that meets all of these standards. And given the large right-of-way, coupled with some of the easements in the area, and also wanting to make sure that we have something that is visible as a sign, we found that this was really the only viable location that we could come up with. We don't take it lightly to come to you all. You know, the locations that were in consideration that were outside of, you know, issues pushed it further in towards the center of the outlot, which, as we look at it as, you know, really stewards of the city's goals for the commercial that we're trying to bring in, that would be limiting. You know, the further that sign goes into that lot, it may impact who wants to be there. We've been actively marketing it and continue to do so. So I am here to answer any questions you guys might have. Thank you.
So if you put the sign in, then would it also affect whether somebody could build there, do you think? Or-
Well, if we were to put that sign further into the outlot, yes. In the current location that we proposed, I think we don't have any concerns about that. It's partly why it's pushed where it is to make sure that we're giving the most flexibility for that future development for the commercial parcel.
Mhm. Okay, thanks. And gentlemen and lady, any questions?
The alternate on Baltimore, what are your concerns with that?
So we do have some concerns about proximity to wetland there. The other things that you see if you drive by there, and it's a little hard to tell in the picture, is the Capstone Viking Meadow development that Grace mentioned. They have built a massive wall in that area now. And so that's probably 12 feet up out of the ground. And it really, between adding in probably a $50,000 retaining wall based on our plans, in addition to the monument sign, we wouldn't really have much visibility. We only have visibility in one direction. And it's, again, hard to tell in the picture, but it ends up being recessed pretty far back into the corner. So that visibility coming south, you wouldn't ever see the sign. So that would be a primary concern.
Thank you.
Yep.
Nothing else? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
input. And I'm closing the public hearing. And I'm sorry, I missed it. Grace, does the staff have a recommendation on this?
Staff did not give a recommendation on this. We don't find many issues with the possible siting of this sign. There would possibly, as we mentioned, be a way to angle it so it's encroaching less on the setback, but again, then we'd be losing some of that visibility. So staff didn't make a formal recommendation, but this does seem like a sensible request.
Okay.
Are there any practical applications of the easements or setbacks that would be affected by the sign, not in terms of a rule, but in terms of usage of those?
Yeah, I've checked with our city engineer, and he has mentioned that with the proposed location of the sign, he does not have any concerns regarding the easements. A condition of approval of this variance would be that if additional right-of-way does need to be taken at any point and the sign were need to be demolished or moved, the city would not be liable for that. That cost would be incurred by the applicant.
And you've discussed that with the applicant?
That is something that was in the packet and on the resolution, so
Okay.
yes.
Well, I think with that condition in place, it does seem sensible. I see about the angle of the sign, a lot of north and southbound traffic, so if it's at a 45 to that, it's gonna reduce that visibility, and so I think with that condition in place where the city is not gonna be held liable, should it need to be removed or relocated, I see no reason to not recommend this to council.
So are we looking at, it doesn't have the page number on here. Can you put the drawing up of which one we're discussing,
Yes.
the photo? Okay, so is the sidewalk under the sign in this photo?
The sidewalk is to the south of, oh.
You can use a pointer on
You see those double lines there? That,
This is your sidewalk right here.
no, but going north and south. See, there's below.
the sidewalk, if you move your pointer down to the right, where it says
This right
20.
here.
Sorry.
We're talking about this line right here and this line right here. And it continues down to here. Is this a sidewalk? No. Remember the sidewalk on that part?
That's topography lines, isn't it?
Yes, those are topography lines.
Okay.
The lines here are for utilities.
Okay.
I ran this by our public works manager, and he did not express any concerns about future sidewalks in that area.
But there's the sidewalk right here.
Okay. I just was wondering if that was a sidewalk.
Yes, there is sidewalk here, and it will
I
connect
get that,
up.
yeah,
Yes.
but I'm talking north and south. Oh, that was my only concern. Because there's enough room to put one there, behind the curb.
Correct, in the right of way.
Yes, that would be placed in the public right-of-way, which is, here.
Okay, does anyone have any concerns about this? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance request for the setbacks of the sign with the stipulation as indicated by staff regarding if in the future there needs to be any removal of the sign. It's not the responsibility of the city to pay for that.
Is there a second?
Yeah,
I'll se- I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? Yes.
Commissioner, is the recommendation for approval with all of the conditions in the draft resolution in the packet, not just that one?
I didn't read those. I would assume that's fine unless there's some objectionable requirement, but I didn't find that page, so I don't know.
Let's take a look.
Page 12 of the PDF. Grace has drafted a draft resolution with 4 conditions of approval,
Oh, got it.
and number 4 is the one you specifically commented on, but I assume you meant including all 4 of those conditions. Just want to confirm.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that motion passes. And again, thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing for request by Tom Babineau for a variance at 239 Aspen Road.
Yes, this is a public hearing for a front setback variance at 239 Aspen Road Northeast. Tom Babineau is the applicant for this variance request. He is requesting a variance for his front yard. This property is zoned and guided Coon Lake. The surrounding properties are also zoned and guided the same. This property is within the Shoreland Overlay District. It is a through lot with frontage on Lakeshore Drive and Aspen Road. The driveway in the front of the house would be facing Aspen Road. This applicant is proposing to demolish an existing home, garage, and accessory structures and build a new single-family home on the property. The western edge of this property is approximately 45 feet from the shore of Coon Lake. And staff and the applicant have found that the existing home appears that it would need extensive repair in order to be livable, which is why the applicant is seeking to demolish and rebuild. The request is to allow a front yard setback of 15 feet along Aspen Road, where the city code requires a front setback of 25 feet within the Shoreland Overlay District for properties zoned Coon Lake. The garage portion of the home would be 15 feet from the property line along Aspen Road, and the rest of the structure would be 23 feet from that property line. The well is located in front of the home, and the septic is located to the south. The applicant is working with our building official to resolve concerns about soil compaction and the location of the proposed septic site, and that will be addressed if this project does progress. The lot has a significant slope towards the lake, which is an element of this applicant's request. Staff has found that the approximate grade for the slope is around 30%. The proposed structure is 35.7 feet from the rear property line and 77.3 feet from the ordinary high water level. It does meet the setback requirements in this zoning district. It is also below the 25% threshold for impervious surface. This request has been sent to the DNR for comment, and the DNR has replied stating that they do not have comments on this request. The standards for reviewing a variance are the practical difficulties test. The burden of proof is on the applicant to show that they have a practical difficulty that can only be remedied by the variance. All three standards must be met. The first is that the request is reasonable. The second is that the request is due to unique circumstances on the property that are not caused by the landowner. And the third is that the variance, if granted, will not have a negative impact on neighborhood character. Findings of fact for each of the three standards have been provided in your packet. The Planning Commission may open the public hearing and either recommend approval if you find that all three parts of the practical difficulties test have been met by the applicant, or recommend denial if you find that the three prongs of the practical difficulties test have not been met. I'm happy to answer any questions, and a draft resolution for approval and denial have been included and may be modified to reflect the findings of the Planning Commission. Yes, I'd also like to note that the practical difficulties narrative that the applicant submitted that was included in the packet is outdated. There is a more recent one from May 30th. I believe the one in the packet is May 20th. After we had changed the setbacks and pushed the house further back from Aspen Road.
Okay, thanks. All right. I'm going to open the public hearing on this issue. And would anyone like to come and speak? And we usually ask people who are not the owners to come first. So if you have any concerns or praises, come on up. And we are going to ask you to sign your name, the woman in the back there. If you could come up, please state your name. It's right here. And you can do it after you're done. So, but please state your name and your address, please.
I'm Vicki Bugby. Address is 816 Emerson Drive. On that piece of property, it's sort of like a triangle block, and they're in the center. And I'm on the far side facing Emerson, and my neighbor is on the other side facing, she's at the tip of the triangle, so she's like Lakeshore and Aspen. Her only concern is how close they might be to her, but that would be on the north side that I didn't hear any setbacks on.
Okay, so you're not speaking for yourself, but for a neighbor of yours?
Right. Now the setback to Aspen, we're all fine with that.
Okay.
That's fine.
And but you live in the neighborhood also?
I live on the other side of their property.
Okay.
She lives on one side, but she's not in very good health.
Okay. So what are your feelings about it?
I don't know how close it's actually going to be to her property line. I just know she's a little bit concerned because my understanding, they're very nice people, by the way, but they're going to have a 2-story house, and she's got a 1-story house. So if it gets close to her line. But to be fair, on the other hand, she is right up the sidewalk, right up against that property line. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying she might be concerned about it.
Right, okay.
Sorry, that's all I have
It's all
to
good.
say.
I do appreciate your coming up, and if you could please sign your name and address there. Okay, yes. And then, would anyone else like to come up and speak? Okay, thank you. And while Vicky's finishing up here, if you could just say your name and address, please.
We'll leave the map up. Tom Babineau, property owner at 239 Aspen Road.
Okay. And Tom, what would you like to say to us?
So in response to Vicky's concern, if you go back to the map that you were just, the setback limit, the proposed house is 7 feet. Our setback is, right now, the house proposed is.
And if you could come speak into the microphone, please.
Okay. So you're proposing
Oh.
10 feet?
Yeah, we're 10 feet away from Ellen's property. And
Okay, if we
essentially-
could just not be talking back and forth, because we have to get it into the minutes.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
And so essentially what we're asking is to set the house farther away from Coon Lake by 10 feet. So we are closer to Aspen, moving it away from the lake. And if we were to move it farther towards the lake, we would be impeding on the view of Ellen's property to the north of us, which was Carol's concern.
Mhm.
The other factor is there's a huge white pine that's on the property on the north side. Right here. And if we were to shift the house 10 feet in that direction, we would have to pull the tree down, and I really don't want to do that. The other factor is the natural slope of the lot. It's a pretty steep slope, and we're trying to set the house more on level ground on top of the slope rather than having to haul a bunch of fill in and building a big retaining wall when it's not really necessary. The other factor too is the existing house to the north of us. Right here, they're closer to Aspen, than we are, and so that's, I guess, the basis for our request for the variance.
What are the dimensions of the house?
30 feet by 45.
Okay.
So it's not an enormous house.
Mhm.
We can't do a walkout there because of the redox line. So we're building, I think, a pretty modest 2-story house there. And there's really just not a lot of real estate on top of that hill to shift it farther south because of the setbacks for the septic.
Mhm.
And so we pretty much have maxed out, what we can do on that lot.
Where will the well be on the site then?
The proposed well is right here.
Okay.
And you can see there, there's setbacks for, there's a sand point, there's another well over there, and you can't see it on this, but there's another well, so the septic is well outside of
All of
the
them.
wells, yeah.
Okay.
The garage, is that going to be a standard? I've seen some tall garages. I guess that's where my concern is.
It's a 2-car garage, and the second level continues over the top of the garage.
Okay.
So the garage is within that 35 by 45 dimension footprint?
No, the garage is, let me see if I have the dimensions. The garage is 900 square feet. It's a two-stall garage, but it's too deep.
And it's an attached garage?
Yes.
And you said there's a story on top of it also?
Correct.
A living story?
Yeah, it'll be an open area.
Okay. So 900, so that's a 30 by 30 garage with, okay.
Do you have any questions, Glenn?
No, I appreciate the actually setting it farther away from Lakeshore Drive to preserve views and rather than push it farther. I mean, all the reasoning for putting it there seems valid to me. Like preserving the pine. Yeah, I think it was well conceived for the site.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So I drove past.
Yeah.
And there's the existing cabin is there. So, so are you asking for that extra 5 feet? Well, it'll be 10 feet, right? Because is the home sitting at 20 feet or 15 feet currently?
The current house, it's in line with the existing, with this house right now.
Yeah, I can't remember. Is it 15?
I'm trying to look.
Okay. So I was just curious on, is it because you want you're putting a bigger footprint for the house? So we're needing to be closer to Aspen? I get the backyard. I agree. The slope is way too steep, and to have to bring in,
Yeah.
that is very reasonable. So,
Right.
so I like removing the property that's there, the home that's there, and rebuilding right in that same spot, obviously elongating it.
Yep.
But so I'm assuming you're going bigger, so you're needing that extra.
We are.
Okay.
Yeah. But the house it will be set back, 15 feet from Aspen. I think the neighbor's house is set back 15 feet as well, so it's in line with their house. So it's not gonna be, out of line with the rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah, just trying to understand.
The existing house is 16.5 from the right of way.
Okay.
How long have you had the property?
We bought it in 2023.
Couple years?
August, yeah.
Okay. So when you bought it, did you investigate being able to rip the existing one down and what would be required to put up a new place?
We did not. No, we didn't understand the full extent of it until we, have been familiarized with the property and what the regulations are in East Bethel.
Yeah.
So the entire existing structure is going away?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we're looking to improve the property.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
So I'll say that I'm not entirely convinced that putting it within 15 feet is a good thing of the road. And I'm just wondering what other solutions there might be for you.
Yeah, we'd have to haul in a lot of fill to push it out over that slope. And it'd be a big retaining wall there.
It's just the garage too, it's not the entire house.
Yeah, the house is set back 23 feet from Aspen. The garage it comes out from the house.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're talking.
And that is further from the property line yet?
Yeah.
It's on the west, or,
So this is the garage
Yeah,
here.
that
House
portion.
is set back right here.
yeah. So it's like in the middle of the lot. I drove past too. I don't think it would look out of place,
Mm-mm.
Okay.
especially with the neighbors. And again, I really like the idea of not having a giant retaining wall in the back. I think it'll look actually better,
Mhm.
having a slope in our backyard, existing.
Brian?
I guess since you said it, I don't know if I'm terribly comfortable with that encroachment, but have you considered an 800 square foot garage? I mean, a smaller garage, perhaps. I mean, 900 is a giant garage. I mean, I understand that, a big garage is nice to have. You can fit all your toys in there. You have workspace, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just wondering if if 900 square feet is necessary.
So this is a two-car garage right now. I don't think a two-car garage is unreasonable from Aspen Road.
Well, no, you said it's double deep. What did you say?
It
Two-car
is.
deep.
It is, and because we can't build a basement, we couldn't build a walkout. Our utilities are located in the garage. There's gonna be a cement shelter in the garage, a storm shelter, that's gonna occupy probably a quarter of the garage. Because we won't have a basement. If there's a tornado, I want somewhere to go. That was really the only option we had.
So will you be able to fit 2 cars in the garage and the storm shelter?
Yes. Yep. Two-car garage, or 2 cars from Aspen. The storm shelter is set in, this corner of the garage.
Okay. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I think we did.
Here to answer any questions.
Yeah, that's okay, yeah.
So 1/3 of the entire structure is the 15-foot setback. The other 2/3 are 23, I think. And that 1/3 is the same setback as the house to the north. So that's consistent with what's built and the neighbors. I don't really see what the problem is.
It seems reasonable. The unique circumstances, I think, maybe encourage requesting this variance, and I don't think it'll negatively impact the neighborhood, so.
Well, I think the whole area is unique, right? Everything,
Yeah.
so. Alrighty. Does anybody else have any questions for the applicant? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming up. Okay. Do you have any discussions or questions for Grace or Kendra? Is there a motion?
I don't want to hog the motions, but I can make one if need be.
I don't even know how to do motions yet.
Well,
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the setback variance with any, are there any staff recommendations on that?
They've been included in the approval resolution and the conditions of approval.
All right, with the staff recommendations as written.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. And any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, so that motion passes. So this will be a recommendation to the city council. At the next meeting, it will be brought up. Do you know what that date is?
July 14th.
July 14th. Okay, so again, this is just a recommendation, and city council may decide what they decide, but we do recommend the approval. Thank you. Okay. We have another public hearing coming up to consider a zoning ordinance amendment to regulate barn dominiums in East Bethel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item was tabled at the last meeting and is something that the City Council has identified as a priority, and we've been working on this draft ordinance with them for several months. So the draft that is in front of you tonight, sorry, I'm trying to get my slideshow up and it doesn't want to go up there. So we'll just skip it. You have the packet. So the public hearing tonight is to consider a code amendment to allow barn dominiums, which are defined as a single-family detached principal residential structure dwelling with attached shops or storage areas, and usually built using post-frame construction. And so the main issues that council has discussed are size limitations, architecture, and concerns about potential home occupations. That's a pretty common reason people are building them. They think that they can run a business out of their home if they build a barn dominium. And we do have home occupation standards that allow it subject to conditions. And so as we talked with the council, we did recommend updates to several sections of the zoning ordinance, definitions, general regulations related to home occupations, the general building standards, the detached accessory structures, and changes to both the agricultural district and the rural residential district to allow barn dominiums only in those districts. The council really felt it was not appropriate to allow that type of a structure in like the Elevage development, for example. Some of the concerns that were raised by the building official relate to the pole barn structure itself and concerns about how that would meet the building code standards for residential construction. The foundation type options are permitted by the building code. When you build a pole barn for a living space, it's different than when you build it for your horses. There are different construction standards, and so the building code knows that this is kind of a hot topic lately, so they've provided, and I've provided you some information in the packet, standards for how post-frame construction needs to be built for a residential dwelling unit. So just so residents know, it's a different structure than you would build for your storage barn, but it is still allowed as a post-frame building. That does require us to make some changes to our building code, which currently requires a continuous foundation for residential structures. So our zoning ordinance, I said building code, but I meant zoning ordinance. So that's one of the changes proposed. And then we needed to update the definitions for accessory structures to clearly identify which structures, which conditions apply to attached versus detached structures. And barn dominiums, and you probably know this, run the gamut. There are barn dominiums that look like single-family homes, and there are barn dominiums that look like garages, right? And you can buy all of them at Menards or any other place in town. And the city council felt like it was important to have some minimum standards for architecture to ensure that it's not just a metal building. So they limited those upgrades to just the front elevation of the homes. And so this ordinance went to them a couple times in March and in April, and this is the draft that they felt comfortable with, holding a public hearing at the Planning Commission for your feedback. And so you've had this for a couple weeks, so I went pretty quickly through it, but happy to answer any specific questions. We had a lot of discussion at the council. Some of you may have watched those discussions, but I'm happy to answer any questions about this draft ordinance.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to open the public hearing for the barn dominium topic. Does anyone want to come up and talk about it? No? Okay. That being the case, I'm closing the public hearing, which we've done that duty for the city council. And then, gentlemen and lady, do you have anything that you want to ask Grace or Kendra or bring up?
I have a question about the definition barndominium. I don't know what is meant by a single-family detached structure, because a home is detached by nature. Or detached from what?
Yeah, that's our definition. A single-family detached home is in our code today. That's what a single-family home is, as opposed to a single-family attached home, which is a townhome or a twin home.
Oh, okay. And then it seems to me that it should read residential dwelling structure rather than residential structure dwelling.
Where is that, Glenn?
That's the first sentence. A single family, it says, oh, it's section 1, page 35, definition of barndominiums.
Okay.
But they keep striking out structure and putting buildings everywhere else.
Right, but just if you're going to put that in there,
No, I'm just saying like,
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
It just goes
To your
back and
point,
forth.
in the staff report, the red line, I think you're right, is that it does say both structure and dwelling, and I think that's an error, so I need to look at that.
If
I
you-
don't think we want to say both.
Yeah, they're flopping those. They're using structure and building, but they're striking out structure in lots of places and saying building. So do they want structure to be building?
Right. So that would solve it to strike one of those words, but if you were going to have them in there, I think it should be residential dwelling structure. Because the structure isn't dwelling, people are dwelling. The residents are dwelling. So those two words should be tied together, and then it's a structure.
Yeah, I think I need to look at that. I think structure is the term that we use to define buildings. That definition is in there. We use building and structure interchangeably, and so we were trying to update that, and I think maybe a red line didn't come through. All structures, all buildings are structures, but not all structures are buildings. We were talking about that. So it's a good catch, and I just need to look at it to make sure we're consistent. So
Okay.
I would highlight that definition and correct that one way or the other for consistency.
The other thing I had a question about was on section 2 on the next page. There's an example of a 2,000 square foot house with a 1,000 square foot attached garage could only use 500 square feet of the attached garage for the home occupation, because but it says 50% of the gross living area. So unless the 2,000 square foot house with the attached garage, 1,000 of that 2,000 square feet is the garage. At first I read it as a 2,000 square foot house with an additional 1,000 square foot attached garage, in which case you could have 1,000 square foot of home occupation. But if that 1,000 square foot attached garage is part of the 2,000 square feet, then you're correct, you could have 500 square feet for the home occupation. But it just wasn't clear the way that was written to
Yeah, I
me.
think I think that needs to be corrected. The idea was that, so we will correct the math, but the idea, just to be clear, is you can have a really large accessory portion in a barn dominium, but you won't be able to use that for your home occupation, and so we just wanted to highlight that. But I think the math, I think Zeke's got an error in the math there, so we'll just have to correct that. So thank you for calling that out.
Okay, well, Glenn, I appreciate you reading all of this. I apologize to the commission that I haven't had a chance to go through all of this yet. So thank you.
So I have a question. The building department adopts a building code. Is it the UBC they go by?
I think in Minnesota, there's a state building code.
You
That-
pick one to adopt.
Right, and I think
So they
we've
adopt
adopted the Minnesota
Minnesota?
building code,
Okay.
I believe.
So what does in Minnesota's building code say about these? Are we following what they're saying?
We are, but we do have to change our zoning ordinance because our zoning ordinance has a different foundation requirement
Yep.
that's not required by the Minnesota building code. So I did include the state building code handout, but they do allow barn dominiums, or shouses, sometimes they're
Right.
called. And they do talk about the foundation, the firewall. Are you a building official? Right?
Believe it or not, I'm a certified building
I thought,
inspector.
okay, I thought so.
So,
So, not to get
Yes.
too far in the weeds, but the main issue with these is that you do need a firewall between
Right.
the storage space and the house, which is not typical in a pole barn. And so the construction methods, not only for that separation there, but in the roof, add significant costs. And then the foundation does need to be different than, again, like I said, our traditional pole barn. So the building code hasn't actually been revised, but they have provided guidance on the residential code. Actually, it's Dolly, and if you know, they've started to get involved in things that they don't think they need to be involved in, but that's a different issue. But they've provided a nice cheat sheet, which is in page 46 of your PDF, about how that building code allows this post-frame construction
Okay.
for living space.
Okay. And so we're gonna allow these per this on page 43 on small lots, half-acre lots. They'll be small, but we would.
Yeah, we talked with the council. They were more concerned about ensuring that it's only in the 2 rural districts and not in the, so it can only be in the ag and the rural residential zoning districts. And so that's what
Okay.
they, 46 of the packet. It doesn't, they were less concerned about the lot size, just because those districts tend to have bigger lots. There are smaller ones in those
Yeah.
districts, but they tend to be our bigger lots.
But there are developments in those zones that do have small lots,
Yeah.
correct?
Right, and one other thing that came up that I'll mention is that, we did talk about this at the council too. It's possible that there's a rural subdivision that a developer built that has covenants that would prohibit this. So
Right.
this doesn't, you still have to follow the covenants from the development, but if you don't have development covenants and you have a 1-acre lot in the rural district, you could build the barn dominium.
But we kind of doubt that a developer 10, 20 years ago would have had foresight to talk about barn dominiums. Right.
No, but sometimes the covenants do have specific standards that just by virtue of what those standards are would, without specifically prohibiting a barn dominium, would prohibit a barn dominium. Because of, material standards, window requirements, things like that. But yeah, I just want to mention it, that theoretically there could be a covenant that would restrict it in those 2 zoning districts, but our city code wouldn't.
So our building official has reviewed this and approves it, in his opinion, or recommends it.
Yeah, we went back and forth a little. He had a lot of concerns, frankly, about
Obviously,
it.
yeah.
And so we did go back and forth. Council sent it back. We worked with him, and I think Nick is comfortable with this. I wouldn't say he approves of it, but he's comfortable with this language. He feels like it protects the health and safety of the community and allows this option for residents.
Right.
So he's not so much interested about the aesthetics, but his is health and safety.
Correct. The foundation, the firewall, those kinds of things.
So Corey and I were just briefly discussing, the issue of having this on smaller lots. I mean, and I'm thinking in a development. I mean, if somebody puts one in between 2 nice houses and then they're going to have this barn dominium, I'm not so sure that's a great thing.
No,
So.
that's where personally, I think they should be an option for people, but I think they should be bigger lots. I mean, not half-acre, not even 1, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and just after the recent discussions we had, if somebody were to request a variance for a setback for a barn dominium, I mean,
Yeah.
that could put a large structure in a small area. I mean, and that could have a negative impact on the neighborhood.
Well, I think they got the size.
Yeah, we tried to scale it using that existing table so that the rural residential district does have a minimum 2-acre lot size for a new lot. And in our example, we just said if you have a 3.5-acre lot, you would be allowed 1,000 square feet, an additional 2,400 square feet. So you could, kind of works through how you could do it. That does, that table sort of does limit some of the square footage, but due to the size of the lot, remember our accessory space is tied to our lot size. So you couldn't do the biggest barn dominium if you only had a 2-acre lot. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the whole purpose of these is a lot of garage space. It's a garage with an attached house in most cases.
And I have a question that I noticed they put 14 feet. Many of these people are gonna come in and request 16-foot sidewall. So how did they come up with 14?
I think that's what it is today. I don't think we changed that.
It is 14
Where's
feet.
14?
Just built to show.
What page is that on, Commissioner?
43.
43.
Are they pre-made at 15 feet? Is that why that would be an issue?
Pardon me?
Are they pre-made as 15 feet? I'm just wondering why would they come in with wanting 15 feet?
14, you mean? Or 16?
15, why would somebody want a 15 footer?
For a tall motorhome to get in.
Yeah, it's for the door, the higher
Get
doors.
a higher garage door.
Yeah, we did not, the
100%.
council did not change that. We are, that is
Yeah.
what it is today.
Exactly.
And, you know, with a scissor truss, could you get a big enough door in there? You could. It does
Yeah, in
have
the
some
middle.
additional cost for a lot of, not every motorhome, they've gotten pretty big, but for a lot of them. But, yeah, that's a fair comment.
We just approved one earlier this year with, you know, we recommended a scissor truss and the guy didn't want to do it. And he, 16-foot walls. And so I can tell you right now, that's going to be a major I mean, if you're building a barndominium, a big one anyway, it's because you want to put big stuff in there. And you're going to want 16-foot walls with 14-foot garage door. Or
So
more.
do you think that it should say 16 feet and then not
I'm
have
just
to
bringing
have
it
a-
up. So
not have to have a
when
IUP
Brian
each
and
time?
council gets it, they can discuss it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the examples. Funny that Menards doesn't have the height on these cut sheets. And again, not selling Menards, they just had
Yeah.
good examples, but, you know, that's certainly something the commission could give some thought to. The other alternative is, you know, you can do it with a 14-foot sidewall. You do have to be creative about the design and be thoughtful about the design, and maybe there's an additional cost for that. And, but if the council thinks and commission thinks that larger sidewalls are appropriate, you could recommend, maybe specifically for barn dominiums, a different height. But this is, the 14 feet is what's in your code today.
Right.
And what it would mean is anybody who wanted to do something larger would have to come in and ask for a variance and show that there's a hardship. But again, if you're granting a lot of variances,
Right.
then you've got to look at your code and say,
Right.
if we think that's okay, maybe we just think it's
Yeah.
okay.
And that gets back to just my personal feelings that they should be on at least 5-acre lots. And because they're building them for big stuff. Hence, I hope my best friends aren't watching this because they would beat me with a stick that I want some restrictions on it. But it's just the way I feel. I mean, I think, you know, they got their place.
Would it make sense to have the higher walls on the bigger areas and the
Yeah,
smaller
that's
smaller
kind of what
walls
I'm saying,
on the
yes.
smaller areas?
Yeah, that's kind of my feelings.
Or you could make a driveway that's 2 feet below grade.
Oh, that's not cheap.
With wing walls.
I know. But I would agree about doing it on larger acres, because otherwise you're going to, with the 16-foot sidewalls, stand out from
Right.
the rest of the closer homes around you.
Yep.
Not so much of a problem when you're isolated more with more acres.
Christine, what do you think?
I think you guys all have great points. This is a new area, so I kind of lean towards the idea of like barndominiums are usually larger acreage type of building structures. So yeah, that's why I definitely lean towards kind of Corey's way of thinking of they're putting large toys in those, or they have reason to build these, which is usually they have acres, they have room, they have land for them. But these examples are a little different than what I was thinking, I guess, for what was in my head for yeah, because that one almost looks like a house.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real variety. I work in a lot of cities. I'll tell you, the one on the upper right's the one I see the most. I've only seen one that I can think of that looks like the two on the right, but they exist.
Right.
I mean, it just really depends on what your goal is for it.
Very true. I mean, like, because like the example on the left, like that would be just fine on a half-acre lot, right? That looks very, very nice and reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
It just has a very large garage. You wouldn't know it from the outside, though. It looks nice.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the garage, like to the point about the door size, that's to scale with the house.
Right.
All of these examples, I think
Yes.
the garage doors to scale with the house, but sometimes they're not.
Correct. Yeah. I'm thinking of those beautiful pictured ones where they have, you know, it's just gorgeous, big, big doors and stuff. So. But yes, this gives, I guess, it's just to give the residents good, they have options. They have options. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that picture on the right is deceiving because if you build that, you're not gonna put small doors like that. You are gonna go much higher.
Or want to.
I have a friend that has one that literally parks a semi and trailer, race snowmobile trailer type. I mean, the thing is ginormous. I mean, I don't even know if it fits in our stuff here. So, you know, he thinks they all should be a go. But I think that, you know, again, he has 80 acres. So, I don't think you need to have 80 acres to have one. But I do think it should be like 5.
Yeah, I agree. The parcel size, I think, if the barndominium is, you know, to scale with the lot size, I think,
Yeah.
okay. I just worry about the condition that might come off where it's clearly not to scale. It's trying to fill the whole parcel, and that's something I don't think we want. So I like the idea of varying the maximum sidewall height with that parcel size. That's more to scale. I mean, 5 acres, it's considerable amount of land as opposed to a half acre.
Right.
So.
Council's
Yeah,
gonna
I
have a
agree.
lot of work on their plate.
Yeah, well, and they've talked about this a lot. I like the idea too of, at some point, raising the sidewalls. Maybe at the 5.0 or more acres, they've got some conditions there, and we could say 16 foot there. It's on page 44. Any other things you guys want to recommend to the council?
No.
Well, I brought this up last meeting, I think, but there's a stipulation about matching the existing house, like the siding. And so there was a question, can we use metal siding on these? And then what I brought up was that there were some examples shown where they have a wood grain look to the metal siding. And to my mind, that matches the existing, whereas just regular sheet metal doesn't. But it would seem like if you use something with a look like that, that could be permitted.
Yeah, I think if it looks, what would they say on that page? Similar in appearance material with the approved list. They also mentioned they state they require hidden fasteners for a more residential appearance, and later on it says that the metal siding may be used if it complies with concealed fasteners. Is concealed fasteners any different than hidden fasteners?
No, but we will change that to be consistent. And that's exactly why I think if we have an exposed fastener, it has a very agricultural look, which is fine in some applications, but if it's your house, the council felt pretty strongly that they needed to be concealed fasteners. And, you know, we did talk about specific architectural design, and they just felt that, you know, frankly, metals should be allowed throughout the city, that metals come a long way. And so this does change that in anywhere you can have metal siding as long as it's a factory applied coating and has a concealed fastener and it's not standing seam. But then for barn dominiums, they did add the extra condition that it needs to have some complementary material like brick or stone on the front facade, that they could use metal siding of a different style like shake. So the white example has board and batten on the porch, but then you see above the garage they've got shake, and that they felt met the intent of the code. So they did add those changes as well, but didn't specifically say it needed to be wood grain or anything like that, although I think when you start looking at these, they tend to have more texture and more of a lap siding look on these examples here versus the one on the right, which is, I think, a standing seam.
That's what I was just gonna ask, so the one on the right, would that, do you think that that would adhere to their standards?
It would not.
It would not, because there's not a brick or
Correct.
something?
If they changed on the front, I'm not sure where the front of this is, but the
Yeah.
front, if that gray wainscoting paint, it's just a paint color on this one. But if that was brick or stone, that could potentially meet it. I mean, I didn't do the math to make sure it's 20% on this one. It might not be quite enough to be 20%, but that could meet it. I do think that looks like, you know, it's a rendering, so I can't tell, but it looks like standing seam. I'm not sure that that's metal siding. That would comply, I mean.
Okay, well, I'm not hearing a lot of ideas bubbling up here, but I do think that we have some consensus on the height of the sidewalls. Should we make a recommendation to the city council? And would that be just a motion, or do you think?
Yeah, I think
Please
here's
put
what
it-
I heard, and tell me if I'm right. I mean, Commissioner Terry had two notes that we need to correct about the definition of the barn door is, I think, repeating itself with structure and dwelling, and to check the math on the, in the staff report on the amount of home occupation space. So we will do that. And then what I heard was a desire to limit barn dominiums in the ag and rural residential to lots at least a minimum of 5 acres in size, and then to allow by right a 16-foot sidewall height.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think that we're saying that they have to be limited to 5 acres or more. I don't
okay.
know if we have consensus about that, but if they are in 5 acre, then they can go up to 16 foot on the sidewalls. Am I,
That's where I was coming
and
from.
Corey, you might have some difference on that, less
Yeah.
than 5.
I struggle with it,
I
to be
know.
honest with you. Yeah. I struggle with it. So.
And on this side?
If it were up to me, I'd probably think maybe 2 acre would be a minimum, or 2.5. But there might be some convincing argument to go smaller, and I don't really know what that would be. And I'm
Yeah,
not really-
I think they've put a lot of discussion into this about, and allowing smaller acreages. But I think that Corey has made a great point about needing 16-foot walls, so that we don't have a bunch of IUP applications coming up.
Great.
Okay, So Kendra, do we need a motion or just a
Yeah,
suggestion?
I think you should, I'd like to have you make a recommendation to the council to recommend approval of the draft ordinance with those two changes from Commissioner Terry, and what I think is a condition that barn dominiums in those districts will be allowed a 16-foot sidewall height if it's on at least 5 acres. I don't know how to write that yet, but
Yeah,
I know
okay.
what you're
So I'll
saying.
make that motion then to, that we make a recommendation to approve, or that they approve the ordinance with the corrections that Mr. Terry has brought, and that if there's a barn dominium on a acre lot of five or more acres, that the minimum sidewall will be 16 feet.
That would be maximum.
Maximum. Is there a
Got it.
second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. And is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, that motion passes. And that didn't take an hour and a half, as I thought it was going to, that one night at least. Okay, and speaking of which, Grace has informed me that there are no items yet for the July meeting, so we will likely not have a July meeting unless something urgent comes up. But the deadline for, you go ahead and explain
The
it.
deadline for planning applications or land use applications for the next planning commission meeting has passed as of yesterday, so it is unlikely that we will have a meeting next month.
Okay. And even if we had applications for the planning commission, do you know how long we usually keep those open?
For commissioners?
Yes,
I do not know how long we usually keep those open, but I will check.
I'd say, hopefully maybe within the next month or so, and then we could do interviews and send it to the council. Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to talk about anything? No, great.
We have two people in the back that are here consistently that could be on this board.
Yes.
See them racing forward.
Alrighty, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, okay. I second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? So we are adjourned. Oh, here's this other one.